Hi friends, it's me Jenny with another t-shirt cutting tutorial. If this is my first DIY video that you've seen, then be sure to visit my playlist where you can see lots of other crafty examples and DIY projects. I'll leave links in the description to photo galleries, Instagram, and other videos of mine that you may also enjoy. First, I like to cut off the sleeves and bottom seams. In this case, I'm leaving the V-neck because I like the way it looks. Here I cut off an extra strand to use later as tassel adornments. Tiny nips along the edge of the sleeves can be cute. You can use chalk or try a water-soluble marker pen like I do here, but as you'll see, it doesn't make a very clear marking. Generally, whether I gauge where to cut using my eyes or if I use a chalk marking, I will aim for even cuts, usually down the middle, sides of the shirt, or on either side of the side seams, etc. I'll keep in mind which areas I want to have covered because if you aren't careful, you may wind up making cuts which will require an undershirt, bra, or bikini, that sort of style. Here on the back of the shirt, I'm going to mark along the sides where I want my cuts to go. I'm going to make horizontal cuts from top to bottom, and I want the ones at the top to be more narrow as to create a tapered effect. It would be totally awesome if the chalk pencil worked better, but it still kind of helps in this case. This classic move you'll see me do in all of my cutting videos, where you grab the back layer of the shirt at top and bottom and fold it in half. I can generally see where the middle is using my imagination, but you can also use a ruler to be more precise. I'll line up the seams at the side of the shirt to get close to perfection, and I'll make sure there aren't any accidental folds along the creases where I might cut through the wrong layers of fabric. I especially watch out for this where the sleeves fold and the shoulders and armpits are close to where the scissors will be. I can't tell you how many times I've made the mistake of cutting parts I didn't mean to, but those were good lessons learned. I'll start cutting down along the back of the tee with smaller slices and make wider ones as I go further down, using the wimpy markings to help me stay true to the shape I'm going for. You'll notice after making a handful of cuts at the top, I skip to cutting at the imaginary halfway mark, quarter mark, and then cutting between each of those. This is so that I help myself make straight lines that are about the same width all the way down. Otherwise, sometimes they get crooked. At this point, you could even like the way the shirt is. It's okay to stretch it out. In fact, if the material is durable, stretching it can help make slack for when we start weaving. However, I will usually save most stretching until we get to that point so the extra stretched fabric doesn't get in our way too much. Here is where I'll make marks down the sides of the tee, but doing my best to steer clear of where I'll need a bra to cover. Measuring along the seam and matching each side is my favorite way to gauge where I want to cut. Where you feel like making cuts is the creative part, and you can use tutorials to find styles you like or entirely make up your own. Watch out for that shoulder fabric. Okay, well it's still kind of hard to see this black shirt even on the mannequin, but just take the second string and pull it through the first one. I'm starting under the collar, but sometimes you might like to wrap it around the collar. After you've got a strand looped through the top one, continue down pulling each strand through the last one. You can make each weave more snug by pulling it out towards the edges or loose for a more relaxed look. When you get to the bottom, cut the last strand and tie a few times at either end. Here I do a second layer of weaves pulled tightly towards the edges, cutting the last strand in half and tying at the sides. This is where I loop each strand as I pull them through. You can experiment with alternating, and again, this is the fun and creative part, where you get to design your shirt however you like. Each experiment is good for practice. This is where I just do the loop-de-loo weave down the sides. You can add beads to the dangling strings on the sleeves, etc. This is what the finished product looks like. Check my playlist full of tutorials and DIY examples with shirts that are not black and easier to see. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check back in the future for more DIY fashion tutorial videos, yoga, kitty, nature, and more.